Vania was one of my original favorites from the Polynian line, and to this day, I'd say she remains a very strong contender for favorite. So luckily for me, eventually they decided they were going to make Polynian number 7A, Vania, Old Uniform Edition. I'm not quite sure what they mean by old uniform, but either way, this is an update to the color scheme of the Vania figure. It uses the same sculpt, but we have a bit more of a darker figure. Here on the box, of course, we have the usual low opacity image to the left and opposing image to the right. On the side, we have her in somewhat of a battle-ready stance, and on the other side, she's got her suitcase behind her back, ready for school. On the back, there's a couple different pose shots, as well as the accessories being showcased, and of course, it shows off a little bit of PANTSU as well. But let's open this box up, because as usual, we are greeted with the typical Polynian windowed box. This box is actually really nice. We of course have the figure to the right, and on the left there are old and new images of Vania. We actually see her color variant as well as a larger image of her original colors, almost like a CG from a dating sim game. Additionally, next to that, there is an image of her in another color variant that, of course, we don't have any figure of yet. I'm not quite sure what they were doing with that, but I do like it. Then of course there's a figure we're actually looking at, and along the sides some images of her different accessories and how they can be used. But let's open this figure up. And here are some of her accessories, including her hair, her scarf, and her hexagonal base, along with her suitcase and hands. And here's the figure herself, along with some additional accessories, faces, and another part of her scarf. The figure is just under 5.5 inches, making her 1/12 scale. In hand, this figure feels really great. We got the typical build construction that we like from Polynian, and it's just a solid figure overall. There aren't too many paint errors, as there were many on the original Vania, which I'm really happy about here. The red in the highlights of her underwear and some on her hands, her white that's kind of tickled in there as well, with that silver of course as well, making her look a little bit more robotic, which is pretty cool. As far as articulation goes, we are going to be getting the typical great articulation that we get from those peg joints. And of course, each one can be moved in and out. You can of course swivel each one, just like the shoulder here. The elbow has the same ability to bend in and out and be swiveled, as well as the wrist. Even on this giant fist, it can be rolled, twisted, and in and out. Her head can go up and down. It can be turned side to side and also rolled quite a bit. Her chest is actually a little different. We have that ball peg joint in the back, which allows her to crunch just slightly forward, but she gets a very good crunch back because the tie isn't restricting the other half, and she goes side to side too. And of course, she has the same joint in her leg, which allows her to go out and in, which is really nice because that skirt is a somewhat flexible sort of PVC vinylish type, and it allows her to get a full swivel and a nice kick in and out, as well as her knee, and that gets a swivel too. And even her ankle with that nice chunky cuff can still go up and down just slightly and swivel just a little bit there, but it does what you need it to do. Now, one thing I really like about the new figure, when you put them side by side, is the finish. If you look at the white in both of their legs, the one on the newer version is somewhat of a pale, very desaturated pink, whereas the one on the original Vania is painted on white. The other one seems to be sculpted of the actual color, whereas you can sort of see brush strokes in the original Vania, which I'm not a big fan of. I do love this color, but it really annoyed me that all of her flesh was that really pale, bright white. It makes swapping parts with her kind of hard. This one has that nice pale body that we get from some of the newer figures, that nice soft plastic, no brush strokes really, and I just like this a lot more. It goes well with her darker uniform. When posed, this figure takes amazing pictures. The build quality is so nice, and the colors all work really well together. From an artistic standpoint, this is actually a little bit better than the original Vania. I like the original one for its own reasons. I like that louder red color, but this one really does kind of feel like its own character. There's a lot of dark on this one, and that goes from the uniform to even the hair. Her hair is of course that nice, almost really bright, but still somewhat in a mid-tone purple, which looks great with the highlights of white and silver. The uniform is of course also rather dark, being almost a very dark navy blue, almost a purple in and of itself as well. but it's a bit more muted, so it doesn't come off as a loud color. You would maybe think it was gray. Then we have those highlights of silver, which look to be metal, making her seem far more robotic, but still seeming organic because of her design. And finally, that red. It's just enough where you have it, and it's a great way to make the figure pop even more. Another big difference is that her bow tie and even the scarf wings that she have are not that clear translucent plastic as well. They're a bit more of a solid red, and I think it's nice. It looks good in its own way. Of course, you can turn her around and she has 2 holes on the back of her head. You can choose either one and go ahead and plug in her hair, which has a bit of a bow on it, and a ponytail, which is completely posable. So it's a nice addition. To be honest, I almost prefer her without it, but it does give a little bit more flow to the character when you're taking pictures. And like the many other figures in the series, you can turn her to the side and pop off her hair, which will then allow you to remove her faceplate. You can choose a new one and go ahead and attach that, and then plug her hair right back in. Now you have successfully changed her emotion to a bit more apprehensive of a face. And there's also this somewhat angry, cocky face. Do you even lift, bro? In addition to those chunky fists, she has a pair of chunky, open robotic hands as well, and these are some of my favorite parts. Now, you can also take those forearms off, and that will allow you to then use that ball peg joint to plug in the more humanoid sort of arms. And they just take that larger ball peg and plug right in, which will snap right into place. And now she's a little bit more natural. She's ready to get her GED and turn her life around. She comes with a pair of standard fists. She comes with a pair of open hands. She comes with a pair of Polynian accessory hands, which are locked at the wrist and have peg holes in them. This allows her to hold this awesome looking little school suitcase, which is a jet black with some silver highlights and even just the smallest bit of red right there on the buckle. It can plug right into her back, which is easy enough. Or you could even plug it in right here on her waist. It looks a little weird, but I don't think it looks too unnatural. But ultimately, you're supposed to plug this thing into her hand. You can plug that right into one of those accessory fists, and it's a bit flexible too, so you can do a lot with it. And now she's ready to run off to her first day of ROBO anime school. Just give her a piece of toast. I absolutely love the look of this character with both the large hands and the regular arms. This is really cute, and that red in her underwear really helps the figure to pop just a little bit more. It's so adorable. But of course, we can't ignore one of her cooler accessories, which is this rather nice red winged scarf, and it comes in 2 different pieces, sort of a cuff and the wings. And you turn this around, there's a small peg on the back of it, which of course you will plug into the back of the figure right here. And this is actually slightly posable. It's a soft PVC plastic and it can be folded in and out, and those hinges are on a swivel as well, so you can pose them. This piece here just falls right in on her collar, so you'll just go ahead and take off her head. You'll drop the collar right over her neck and plug her head right back in. And there we have it. Looks great, right? But hey, what about this part here? That little divot will actually allow you to plug this little lip of the winged part into that, which will prevent it from moving. So you plug the scarf in, and then that little lip there holds, and it doesn't allow that to move. And I gotta say, that opens her up incredibly well. The wings are so cool, and I liked them originally, but I think having them in red now really makes them look even better. The other color's great, don't get me wrong, but this just works so well with her to have that warm and cool balance. And from the back, we can see them here with that silver accent, giving it a bit more of a robotic feel. I really think I like this one maybe just a tiny bit more. I love the markings inside there that are actually sort of engraved, I guess you could say. And just like the other Vania, she comes with a pair of these neat little thrusters, which you can plug into different places. One place is on her skirt itself. If you take that little hole there and you'll use the little peg, it'll plug right in and open her up even more, making her look ready to fight. These things are just neat, and I do appreciate them as an accessory. They make her look a little bit more combat ready. But of course, we can take these things off and plug them right into this tiny little hole that is on her gauntlet. And it's a very easy fit, and now her fists are powered up with more of an ultimate attack type feel. These things look like they're giving off the excess heat that's storing up from her powerful punches. I really love this because it helps me imagine that the figure has a bit more story behind it. Parts like these are really appreciated. And of course, like the other Vania, you can turn her around and you'll be able to pluck this little ribbon right off, which will allow you to move her skirt. Now you can unplug her chest from her waist and lift the skirt right off, and you are greeted with the most adorable pair of robot PANTSU. Seriously, this just works so well against her pale skin. And the back looks great. The Robo booty is in full effect, and I've gotta say, these work even better than the yellow ones do on the regular Vania. It's such a great balance of warm and cool. It goes great with the bow. I love this. Another thing that I really like is that when you unplug her waist joint right here, you'll see that this is a very similar fitting to what Yume had, and those two pegs are what made me hate Yume. These ones though seem to line up perfectly. You plug this in and you don't have any problems, and I've got to say, it's such a great improvement, and it makes me really happy to see how much they've learned as they've continued these figures. Those are all of her awesome features, so what do I think of the figure? Well, when you put her next to Vania, you may think, well, it's just a color swap. But honestly, I think it's a little bit more than that. I think her new colors do make her seem like a new character, and she seems to have a slightly better build quality. Additionally, her paint applications are far better than the original Vania. There's a little bit of paint error here and there, but it's really not a lot, and it's certainly not enough for me to mark this figure down at all. The reason that I originally loved Vania was those huge Robo gauntlets. They looked so powerful, so menacing, and they were so different from all the many dainty girls that were released before her. This robot really looked like a complete badass, and I stand by that assertion even now. The old uniform version is honestly the superior version in my eyes. I really do love this figure, and I've gotta say, I like it more than the original. Now, I originally gave Vania a 10 out of 10, and I called her perfect despite the many flaws that I saw. As much as I would love to bump her down to a 9 to give this one a 10 and say she's just a little bit better, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing I did with Mel, and I'm going to break the scale by saying she is an 11, because she is just better than perfect originally was. Now, if you're wanting this figure, I have some bad news because she has more than doubled in price. Of course, the original Vania goes for somewhere around $150 if you buy her now on eBay. Whereas the old uniform of Vania, which is the newer figure, confusedly, it is actually only around $100, $110. So it's pretty fair compared to the original Vania because this is the superior version. But if you're wanting the original colors, you're out of luck. Though I would say buy this one. I think you'll like it. And that's going to do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this, please make sure to leave a like on the video, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe because I'm always reviewing new figures, or even old figures. Did you like this figure? Do you think the original is nicer? What do you think of that Robo booty? Go ahead and drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to tune in next time, and until then, keep on collecting.